Hi friends, good morning and welcome back. This is CA Devang Kothari and we had been learning the subject of EIS, Enterprise Information System. Last session we had started chapter number 3, that was regarding information systems and its components. So let's have a short revision for that. Well, the first topic we started yesterday was regarding components of information systems. Within the components, only two components we covered till yesterday. That was the first component, people. People means employees of the company or the user of the information system. And second component was hardware. Most of the time we spent in the last session to learn this component hardware. Now within hardware, four categories we had created. Number one, input devices. Then fourth one, output devices. Okay, input devices means any device which is used to give input into the computer. What you had to write under that was simply examples. Yes. Fourth one, output devices are the devices by which computer gives result to the user. Under that also what you had to write was simply examples. Yes. More important, what we had focused on was second one, processing devices, and the third one, storage devices. Processing devices, any computer has only one processing device, which is that the CPU itself. Yes, and the CPU can have three components inside. The CPU can be split into three conceptual logical components called as control unit, arithmetical and logical unit, and registers, CPU registers. Control unit, CU controls the flow of data to the computer, to the memory, and from the memory, meaning control unit does the job of bringing data to the RAM, and once the processing is completed, it will remove the data from the RAM and put it back in place. Yes, that is the job of control unit. While ALU, arithmetic and logical unit, is the component of the CPU which does the actual calculations work. Yes, ALU is the one which does all your calculations, arithmetical and logical calculations. Yes, and the third one, CPU registers. Registers are very small storage space inside the CPU, very small microscopic storage spaces inside the CPU. What will be the use of these storage spaces? Well, it will store some very small data which the CPU is currently using. I gave you three examples of registers. Number one, accumulators will do what? Accumulators will keep a track of the running totals. When you are making some long calculations, then running totals are saved in that accumulators. Second, address registers. Address registers will store the addresses of RAM locations. It will store the addresses regarding locations of RAM, so that because these addresses of the RAM are stored in the CPU, that is why CPU can randomly access any location of RAM. We learned about random access versus sequential access in the previous session. Yeah, that random access is possible because CPU has the data stored in its address registers. CPU remembers that where is which data put in the RAM. Yes, and the third one, storage registers will store the data which is currently being processed. It will store the data which is going to be transmitted out from the CPU or the data which is about to come to the CPU. Yes. Okay, and the fourth one was miscellaneous. For other general functions also there can be other registers inside. Yes. Next hardware component we learned was about storage devices. Now to understand that storage devices, I gave you one diagram here and I created one full example. Let me describe both. As per my diagram, I gave you 5 storage devices in that. First one is hard disk. Then you had in the diagram, after hard disk you had virtual memory, then you have RAM, then cache memory, and then the CPU registers. Now whenever CPU requires some data, whenever your CPU will require some data, first it will search the data in the CPU registers. CPU registers is the storage inside the CPU, internal storage. If it does not find the data in the register, then it will get the data from the cache memory. If not found in the cache memory, then it will get it from the RAM. If not found in the RAM, then it will get it from the virtual memory. And if not found in virtual memory, then only then it has to search the entire hard disk. I created example yesterday in my studio setup here that if I need to drink a sip of water, I have a small bottle of water here. Yes, when I'm drinking the water, while I'm drinking the water, I'm holding the bottle in my hand. My hands are like the CPU register. I am the CPU. My hands are like the CPU register. It is very small microscopic storage space. I can keep only some things in my hand which I am currently using. If I'm drinking water right now, then the bottle is in my hand. If I'm writing something right now, then my pen is in my hand. Whatever, that my hands are like the CPU registers. If the bottle in my hand is empty, or if my hand does not have any bottle, then where will I get the bottle from? I will get it from the top shelf of my table here. This top shelf of my table is like the cache memory, which is easily accessible to me, and it allows me random access. Random access because I don't need to search all the areas of the top shelf here. I already know that where is my bottle kept. I know that my bottle is over here. I know that my mouse pointer is over here. Yes, I know that it is remembered by me. Yes, this is my cache memory. So if I need a bottle of water, I'll get it from this cache memory here. If this bottle on the top shelf is empty, then I will get my next bottle from the bottom shelf here. I have already kept 10 bottles in my bottom shelf here. This bottom shelf where I have kept 10 bottles, that bottom shelf is like my RAM. So once the data in the cache memory is completely processed, then I will get new data from the RAM. That bottom shelf is like my RAM. If all the bottles in the bottom shelf is also empty, then I have to get a new set of bottles from the cupboard. But within the cupboard, I have the top shelf of the cupboard which is made empty for my current use, for my temporary use. So what I had done was I already have 30 bottles in the top shelf. Out of the 30 bottles in the top shelf of the cupboard, I will bring 10 bottles and keep it in my bottom shelf here. That top shelf was like my virtual memory. It is part of the cupboard which is kept empty for my temporary use. Virtual memory is a part of the hard disk that is left reserved. It is part of the hard disk which is left reserved to store my temporary data. Yes, so that virtual memory is just like your top shelf of the cupboard. And if I don't find the bottles in that top shelf also, if all the 30 bottles in the top shelf is also empty, then I will get another 30 bottles from the cupboard. But getting the data from the cupboard, getting the bottles from the cupboard is like getting data from the hard disk. Getting data from the entire hard disk will be time consuming. Why will it be time consuming? Well, getting data from the hard disk is time consuming because hard disk allows only sequential access. What was sequential access? Sequential access means that out of all the areas in the hard disk, I have to search every sector of the hard disk one by one. I have to search every area of the hard disk one by one. This is called as sequential access. I don't know that where are bottles kept in the cupboard. So after I open the cupboard, I have to search every shelf of the cupboard one by one to find where the bottles are kept. Yes, same is with the hard disk. That CPU can never remember where is data kept in hard disk. So CPU will have to search the entire hard disk every time when it needs to search data from the hard disk. That is called as sequential search. Done? Yes. It is like, chalo, one more example. It is like, earlier for listening to audio, we used to have audio cassettes. Now, if I have an audio cassette with 10 songs in it, I want to listen to the 7th song. Out of 10 songs recorded in an audio cassette, if I want to listen to the 7th song, can I directly play the 7th song in audio cassette? No. Why? Because in that audio cassette, the songs will play sequentially. If I want to listen to the 7th song, I have to first listen the first 6 songs, or at least I need to fast forward the first 6 songs. Then only I can reach the 7th song and listen to it. Do you know that? Yes. Hopefully you might have seen audio cassettes in olden days we used to have. But nowadays You don't listen to songs on audio cassette. You'll have the songs stored in your memory card or in a pen drive. So imagine if I have 10 songs saved in a pen drive, then from that pen drive, do I need to listen to the first 6 songs in order to hear the 7th song? No. Can I directly play the 7th song? Yes, I can. That is like random access. I can randomly pick up any song and play that song without listening through all the other songs. This is like your random access. Done? Yes. So random access is permitted by RAM, also permitted by cache memory, while sequential access is required in case of hard disk. Clear? Yes. Okay, this was all what we had learned in my previous session. Also, I showed you how to create virtual memory in your laptop. I also showed you some pictures of RAM and say CPU, motherboard and all. Anyways, now going further with our content, going further to the next component of information systems. Components of information systems is what we were doing, and the next component now is softwares. Hardware we did, now we need software, because look, just having hardware is not enough. Inside that hardware, inside the computer, I need to install some software. What is software? Well, software, you remember my first session discussion. Software is a set of instructions. Remember I told you about keywords, important keywords that should come in your answer. I also told you that software is a set of instructions. First session I told you rules, but then I said instead of rules, use the keyword as instructions. Now onwards, remember this keyword, technical terms, that software is a set of instructions. Don't say set of rules. Yeah, the software is a set of instructions that will tell the hardware what to do. Naturally, because in my example earlier, software was giving instruction to whom? It was giving instruction to the CPU. CPU is a hardware. Yes, so it will give instructions telling the hardware what to do. The process of creating the software. Software is created through the process called as programming. This also we learned on my first session, that the process of creating a software is called as, yes, programming. Without software, the hardware would not be functional. Okay? Types of software that we are going to learn is operating system software and application software. Now there are clear differences between both of them. Let us understand that here. First, I'll give you primary differences between both, then I'll give you more details about that. First of all, primary differences. What is operating system software and what is application software? Operating system software, many times in simple words also called as OS, operating system. Well, operating system is basically a master control program. It is a master control program. It is a master control program which will control the general functions in a computer. It will just control the general tasks and the general work in a computer. So operating system software does what? Does some general tasks. Operating system software simply does some general tasks in a computer. What are these general tasks? We'll take a look later. While application software is not a general program. It is not a general controlling program. Application software is a specific software installed for some specific function. Yes, application software is the one which is specifically installed for some specific function. For example, in my previous example, we installed VLC player. VLC player that I installed, it is for what purpose? Does the VLC player do any general task? No, VLC player is only and only for playing audio video. So if you want to play any audio and video, if you want to listen to music, you want to watch a movie, then you need to specifically install VLC player. VLC player does not come inbuilt into any computer. You have to specifically install it. Well, that is the criteria. Dekho, application software is the one which is specifically installed for some specific function. Both these conditions should be fulfilled. It will be called as application software if it is specifically installed by you. It was not inbuilt, you installed it, and you installed it for some specific function. Example, say in case of operating system software, OS, operating system, like I said, is also called as OS. An example of OS, well, examples of OS right now, what is most running operating system in computers is Windows 10. What is most running operating system in mobile phones is Android. And in iPhones it is iOS. Frankly, Android and iOS version, I can't keep a track. They keep on updating it. I think Android 10 or 11 is going on right now. Now, Windows 10, Android, iOS, these are called as operating system. These are the basic program in any computer which is necessary to run the computer. While application software examples, example 1 I give VLC player, or chalo, Tally software. Have you heard that word, Tally? If I want to listen to music or play a movie, then I need to specifically install VLC player. If I want to do accounting work in a computer, then I need to install a Tally software. Tally software will help me only for accounting work. It does not help me in any other work. VLC player will only provide me audio video. It does not provide me anything else. Can VLC player do accounting for me? No. Can Tally software play movie for me? No. These are softwares for specific function only. Such softwares are called as application software, while the general softwares for managing general things in a computer is called as operating system software. Done? Yes? Okay. Now within operating system, look, operating system software is a very important topic here. Is one of the favorite questions of the institute. And it is a very necessary topic because every single computer will definitely require an operating system. Plus, there are so many functions of operating system that you need to know that will be helpful in many other topics also. Yes. So in general, if I tell you what does an operating system do, simplest way, if I explain, I'll write it here. The simplest way to tell you that what operating system does, well, I'll say that operating system manages hardware and manages software. Managing hardware, managing software. Managing hardware. Well, managing hardware means when to use which hardware. Remember, when I double click on that song file, the song will come from hard disk to the RAM. Who is bringing it from hard disk to the RAM? Who manages that? Operating system. Along with the song file, VLC player also comes from hard disk to RAM. Now, did you tell the computer to play the audio using VLC player? No, the computer automatically decided. Does it ever happen that when you click on the song file, it opens with Microsoft Word? Does it ever happen that you click on the song file, it opens with Tally program? No. So when to use which program? That with audio file, it will automatically decide to use VLC program. With a document file, it will automatically decide to use Microsoft Word program. With a PDF file, it will automatically decide to use Adobe Reader program. Now, how does the computer decide when to use which program? It will decide because operating system will manage the softwares also. So managing hardware basically means deciding when to use which hardware. Managing software means deciding when to use which software. When the audio file was processed by the CPU, after processing, audio was generated. This audio, remember, was given to the speaker. This audio from the CPU was given to the speaker. Does it ever happen that by mistake CPU will give that audio to the monitor or printer? No. Can the computer make that mistake? No. How does the computer know that audio is to be given to the speaker, video is to be given to the monitor? How does the computer know that? It knows because of operating system. Operating system will tell the CPU when to use which hardware. So simple terms में managing hardware means deciding when to use which hardware. For audio, use the speaker. For video, use the monitor. For storage, use the hard disk. All that hardware components are managed by the operating system. And managing software basically means when to use which software. When you double click on a document file, it will automatically open with Microsoft Word. When you double click on PDF file, it automatically opens with Adobe Reader. So these file associations are already saved into the computer. It is saved in the operating system. Operating system will decide when to use which hardware, when to use which software. Operating system will decide that the 9 GB movie file is brought to the RAM in parts. We did that in my previous session. Total movie file size was 9 GB in the hard disk, but what comes to the RAM was only part of the file. Out of 9 GB file in the hard disk, only 1 GB came to the RAM. Who decides that only 1 GB will come? Operating system will decide. When this 1 GB work is over, operating system will put that 1 GB back and bring another 1 GB here. All that is managed by the operating system. That is your managing. That is your managing the hardware. Done? Yes. So operating system is a master control program which manages hardware and interface application programs. Interface application programs. Now this is a very important term. Here it is only one word, interface application programs, but this term has many other implications further. To understand that, I give you one explanation here. Notice, managing software that I said here, this term managing software can be better explained with my diagram here. So now notice. I'll create one example. You will not copy anything. Just wait, have some patience. Let me finish everything. Then I will give you time to copy. Yeah. First, you just listen. Say, in any computer, whenever any processing is supposed to be done, whatever programs I process, say for example, I am using programs like VLC player. If I want to listen to some songs or watch a movie, then the program that I use is number one, VLC player. If my VLC player program is running, program is basically set of instructions. Instructions to whom? It is instructions given to whom? VLC player will be giving instructions to whom? It will be giving instruction to the CPU. VLC player has to give instructions to whom? To the CPU. VLC player has to give instructions to the CPU. But you know, in any computer, when any program has to give instruction to the CPU, the program, individual program, can never give instruction to the CPU directly. There will always come in between something. In between the program and the CPU comes one guy called as operating system. Operating system will always come in between. So VLC player will give instruction to operating system. Operating system will pass on that instruction to the CPU. This is why I say that operating system manages the programs and manages the hardware like CPU. CPU is one hardware, and VLC player is one software. An operating system, I say, manages hardware and manages software, so that any software program can never directly give instruction to the CPU. VLC will give instructions to the operating system. From operating system, that instructions will pass on to the CPU. Now, is it possible that in one computer I can run more than one software at a time? Like, along with VLC player, can I also run any other softwares at a time? Yes, I can. Say for example, VLC player is running where I am listening to some songs. Songs are being played in the background. Yes. Along with VLC player, say I'm also typing something in Microsoft Word. I'm using Microsoft Word to write a letter, to type some material. So I'm typing something in Microsoft Word. Along with that, I also have, say, Google Chrome. Say GC is Google Chrome, Internet Explorer. Google Chrome is an internet software from which I am downloading some things from the internet. So VLC player is for listening to audio. Microsoft Word is for writing some document. Google Chrome, I am doing some downloads from the internet. Now, can I do these three things at a time? Yes, I can. Now, if I am doing these three things at a time, then don't you think all three of them will be giving instructions to the CPU? All three of them will be giving instructions to the CPU. VLC player instruction goes to the CPU. Microsoft Word instruction also goes to the CPU. Google Chrome instructions also goes to the CPU. But one problem. This is not possible. Not possible because remember this fact. Remember the fact that CPU can process only one instruction CPU can process only one instruction at a time. Well, if CPU can process only one instruction at a time, then how is it possible that three programs can run simultaneously in a computer? Yes, it is possible because operating system makes it possible. What happens is, like I told you, none of these softwares will directly give instruction to the CPU. No, all the softwares have to give their instruction to the operating system. Operating system is like the manager. Imagine CPU is Shah Rukh Khan, some famous celebrity. Operating system is the manager. Nobody can approach the celebrity directly. Anyone who wants to approach that celebrity, anyone who wants to approach Shah Rukh Khan, they have to contact his manager. Operating system is his manager. So any program who wants to give instruction to the CPU, that instruction will never directly go to the CPU. Instruction has to be given to the operating system only. All these programs can give instruction only to the operating system. All these programs have to give their instructions to the operating system, then operating system will forward it to the CPU. But still question is that how does the CPU then process all three programs at a time? Well, that is where I give you one fact here, that look, CPU is tremendously fast in processing. CPU has tremendously fast processing speed, so fast so fast speed CPU has is that it will be processing 3 programs not simultaneously. It will be processing them one after another. But still, you will feel as if all 3 programs are running at a time. For example, VLC player, you are listening to some songs. Say for example, the audio that you are listening, the song that you are listening to, is say a 5-minute song. But CPU processing speed is so fast that 5-minute song CPU can process within just 5 seconds. And after processing it in 5 seconds, it will give it to the output device from where it will be played gradually. So the CPU speed is so fast that 5-minute ka song can be processed in just 5 seconds. 5-minute song data will be converted into 5-minute audio, 5-minute sound in just 5 seconds. But will the speaker play that sound in that 5 seconds only? No. Speaker will keep playing the song in its proper regular speed only. So now that the CPU has done the processing in just 5 seconds, so until the song is played, the CPU is now free. Free such that now the CPU is free for remaining 4 minutes and 55 seconds. During this time, it will go to other programs, process these other programs and come back to VLC player by the time this song is complete. Same goes with Microsoft Word. Say you are typing some document in Microsoft Word. You're doing some typing work in Microsoft Word. And let's say you are simply typing ABCD. You have your fingers on ABCD or just typing ABCD. A, then B, then C, then D. Now, human typing speed, your typing speed is very slow as compared to the CPU speed. If some of you say that no sir, my typing speed is very good, I got so much marks in typing exams and all. Well, it doesn't matter. No matter how fast you are in your typing speed, it is still very slow as compared to the speed of the CPU. Imagine you have one finger on alphabet A. You have another finger on alphabet B. You press A and immediately then you press B. Then after pressing A, you then immediately press B. You feel that you have immediately pressed it, but between your typing of A and your typing of B, after you type A, before you type B, there is one small fraction of second time period in between. In that fraction of second also, CPU can go to 10 other programs and come back to Microsoft Word before you type B. Such is the speed of the CPU. CPU is like Rajnikant. It will keep shifting between so many programs at a time at such a high speed. It will keep shifting between all these 3 programs at such a high speed that you will feel as if all 3 programs are running together. Actually, all 3 are not running together. Actually, CPU is processing only one instruction at a time. But it is moving so fast, it is shifting between the programs so fast that you feel as if all programs are running together. This ability of the CPU is because of the operating system. This ability is called as this ability of running more than one programs at a time is called as multitasking or multiprogramming. At a time, the CPU can work on multiple tasks, and it can work on multiple tasks because operating system manages that. Now, when I am running 3 programs at a time, all 3 of them give instructions to the operating system, and the CPU has to keep shifting between the programs. Who will make the CPU shift between the programs? Operating system will make the CPU shift. Operating system will make the CPU shift between the programs because operating system manages what the CPU will do. If I am a faculty at an institute, at a college, then the college management will keep making me shift between different classrooms. College management tells me that first lecture you take in, say, this class, second lecture you take in another class, third lecture you take in the third class. The college management will keep shifting the faculty between different classrooms because college management is managing which faculty will conduct their class. Exactly same is what the operating system does. Operating system will keep moving the CPU between different programs. This ability is called as multitasking. Done? Yes. Now, the most important thing which I explain in this diagram here is something called as interface. In this diagram, you see that none of the programs can give instruction to the CPU directly. No. Who comes in between? Operating system comes in between. Now, if operating system comes in between, that is why this operating system I'll say this operating system is called as I just need some space. Called as application program interface. Application program interface, or in better words, smaller words, API. Well, in that, remember the word interface. The word interface has a particular meaning. Remember, interface simply means connection. Interface means a connection, meaning operating system is providing what? Operating system is providing a connection between application programs and the CPU. This VLC player, Microsoft Word, Google Chrome, all of them are what? Well, all of them, as you saw earlier, are nothing but application software. They are specifically installed for some particular function. VLC player installed to play the songs. Microsoft Word installed to do typing work, make a document. Google Chrome installed for exploring the internet. Yes, so ultimately all three of them are basically what? They are application programs. These are application programs. An operating system provides application program interface. It is providing what? It is providing a connection between CPU and application programs. The concept of API simply means that none of the application programs can access the CPU directly. Every application program has to contact the operating system. Operating system will pass on the instructions to the CPU. Operating system is the point of connection. Operating system provides a connection to the softwares, to the application programs with the CPU. Yes, operating system provides interface to the application programs for giving instructions to the CPU. In fact, imagine now just like this, imagine if there is a programmer, if there is some programmer who wish to create a new software, as a programmer who wants to create a new software, say any kind of new software, If a programmer wants to create a new software which I can run on this computer, then tell me, does the programmer need to know that which hardware am I using? No, the programmer does not need to know that which hardware I am using. He just needs to know that which operating system I am using. Because operating system provides API, the another benefit of API is that it will create something called as hardware independence. Because of API, what we get is hardware independence. What does this mean? This means that now my softwares do not depend on which hardware am I using. Whether I'm using say Samsung phone, or whether I'm using MI phone, or whether I'm using Oppo, Vivo, any such brand phone I am using, doesn't matter. Our Myra Education app will always work on your phone as long as it has operating system called Android. So when a student will ask me that, sir, can I play your lectures on my phone, I will not ask you which phone are you using. I will just ask you that which operating system are you using. If you have an Android operating system, no matter which phone you use, doesn't matter, my Myra app will still work on your phone. Do you understand that? Yes, that is basically called as hardware independence. Hardware independence means that my software now does not depend on the hardware. Any programmer who wishes to develop a new software, then he does not need to know that which CPU am I using. He just needs to know that which operating system am I using. Yes, so because all these softwares, none of the softwares is giving instruction directly to the CPU. All the softwares are giving instruction only to the operating system. From the operating system, the instructions are then forwarded to the CPU. Yes, yeah, okay. One more task of operating system. Look, this diagram covers most of my discussions which I will do in functions of operating system here. So one more important function here is that operating system also provides something called as user interface, UI. Who provides that? I said operating system provides. What does this mean? This means that when any user when a user like you and me, if we want to access the computer, then just like software is not allowed to give instruction directly to CPU, similarly user also can never directly contact the CPU. For communication with the user also, there comes operating system in between. So user can contact the operating system will then pass it on to the CPU. So just like operating system comes between software and the hardware, similarly operating system will also come between user and the CPU. Well, this is where I say operating system provides user interface, also called as UI. But chalo, interface means connection. User interface means operating system creates a connection between user and the CPU. Just like operating system was the point of connection between software and the CPU, similarly operating system is also a point of connection between user and the CPU. But chalo, in more simpler way, I can say that user interface is what? User interface, in more simplest way I can say, it is basically the screen that is displayed to the user. Now onwards, remember, look, this word user interface will come at many places in my subject. That is why I'm giving you detailed understanding here. The word user interface means the screen which is displayed to the user. Now you notice that whether I'm using a Samsung phone or whether I'm using an Oppo phone or Vivo phone, all of them are Android phones. Now because all of them are Android phones, haven't you noticed that the screen presentation, the screen options that you get, the settings options that you get, the basic screen options that you get in all the Android phones will be similar. Why similar? Because all of them have the same user interface. While if you pick up an iPhone, then in iPhone, the screen presentation will be different from the Android phones. Now within iPhones, whether it is iPhone 5 or iPhone 6 or iPhone 8 or iPhone 10, in any case, all the iPhones will have same type of screen presentation, whether it is 4-inch iPhone or whether it is 6-inch iPhone. In any case, the screen presentation will be exactly the same because screen presentation is decided by the operating system. As long as it is the same operating system, screen presentation will be same. Then that screen presentation, the way things are displayed on the screen, is called as user interface, because screen is the point of connection between user and the computer. How do you interact with the computer? How do you see the computer? You see the computer, what you see on the screen. So you interact with the computer based on the screen which is presented to you. That screen presentation is called as user interface. Done? Yes. So notice many important terms I have covered up here. I first covered what is operating system and application software. Then within operating system, I gave you important understanding here that operating system provides API. That is application program interface. Interface means a connection. API means connection between software and the CPU. Because of this API, all my softwares do not need to know that which CPU am I using. They just need to know which operating system am I using. Have you noticed, like when you install some new programs in your computer, there will be a requirement list of the program. That system requirements they will ask you. Generally, this system requirement will never tell you that which CPU you should have. But this system requirement will definitely tell you that which operating system you should have. If I want to install Microsoft Word 2019 in my computer, then I will definitely require Windows 10 in my computer, because Windows 7 will not support Microsoft Word 2019. In short, the software which I install should be permitted by the operating system. If operating system does not permit, then softwares cannot give instructions to the CPU. It is like operating system is protecting the CPU. Imagine I have the CPU here and I have the application program here. This program wants to give instruction to my CPU. But you know, CPU is a very innocent device. Very innocent device. It will simply follow whatever instructions are given to it. Now if the CPU is so innocent device, then the softwares might take undue advantage of the CPU. That is why operating system will come in between. Say I am the operating system, I come in between, I step in between and say that all these softwares, none of you can give instruction to my CPU directly. You have to pass through me. So any software who wants to give instructions to the CPU, they have to give instruction to me. I am the operating system. I will pass it on to the CPU at my own time. I will tell the CPU that right now first you process VLC player, then you go for Microsoft Word, then you go for Google Chrome, then go back to Microsoft Word, go back to Google Chrome. By this time the song in VLC player is over. So now I tell the CPU to go back to VLC player. In short, when to process which program is also decided by the operating system. Like I told you, operating system is the college management and a CPU is the college professor. So when should the professor conduct which class is decided by the college management. When should the CPU process which instructions is decided by the operating system. This was called as task management or multitasking. Because more than one tasks are being processed by the CPU at a time, because operating system is telling the CPU when to process which task. Done? Yes? Okay. We'll see that content here. Then I'll ask you to copy this diagram. Just wait, don't copy the diagram yet. I might add some more things in the diagram. Notice. So operating system software. It is a master control program which manages hardware and interface application programs. API, application program interface. I'll just write that here. Interface application programs, that is API. And the explanation of API I gave you down here. Please understand and remember this API explanation nicely, because I will be using that term API at many other places in my subject. It will come repeatedly at some other places also. Within this chapter itself it will come. So remember, operating system basically does what? It does managing the hardware and managing the software. Managing the software like this in this example. Yeah. Important, what we learn here is functions of operating system. Well, this is the most famous question, and plus look, in order to understand exactly what does operating system do, you need to understand functions of operating system. First one, hardware functions. Like I said, when to use which hardware. Operating system will take input from the keyboard and give it to the CPU. It will retrieve data from the hard disk and give it to the RAM. It will take data from the CPU and display output on the monitor. All that hardware devices are managed by the CPU. I told you when to use keyboard, when to use monitor, when to use speaker. It is decided by the operating system. Yes. User interface. I told you user interface means the screen which is presented to the user. Now look, this screen presentation, what you see, is coming from the operating system. Yes, the screen presentation is coming from the operating system. For example, this desktop window that you see is displayed by the operating system. The wallpaper that you see here, who is showing it? Operating system is showing it. The icons that you see here, who is showing these icons? Operating system is showing these icons. The start menu, if you see here, who is showing that? Operating system is showing that. Yes, operating system is displaying all these things on your screen. That is part of user interface. Earlier, in olden computers, the user interface used to be command-based user interface. That was the time when Windows was not an operating system. The very first operating system in the computers was DOS, called as disk operating system, DOS. Now that DOS operating system was a very difficult to use system. It was having command based user interface, meaning when the user wants to give any instructions, you have to type commands. If you want to give instructions to the computer, you have to type commands. Nowadays the computers are more advanced. That nowadays the user interface that we have is not command based user interface, rather it is graphical user interface. Graphical in the sense that you see graphics on the screen, you see icons on the screen, you see mouse pointer on the screen. So if I want to open any program, all I have to do is I have to run my mouse. I go to the drive, double click on the drive, I go to the folder whichever I want to open, double click on the folder, and so on. Yes, so basically this is called as graphical user interface. So to tell you what was command based user interface, let me give you one example. Command based user interface was like this. Imagine an entire computer having only a black screen like this with white text on it. There is no mouse pointer. There are no icons on the screen. If you wish to open any folder, you have to type. For example, if I want to go to the D drive, there is no my computer. If I want to open D drive, I have to type on my screen here D:, it will give me D drive. Within the D drive, if I want to open some folder, say within the D drive, I want to open the folder named MISC, miscellaneous. Within the D drive, if I want to open the folder named MISC, then I have to type cd space MISC. Then that folder will open. Within the folder, whichever file I want to run, I have to type the actual name of the file. I have to type name of the file, only then that file will open. Yes, if I write a name of the file devang.doc, enter. Well, it says it is not a recognized internal or external command. In short, it is giving me error. Why? Because this folder MISC folder does not contain any file called as devang.doc. Yes. So in short, oh no, that I'll not show you. So in short, which file do I want to open? I have to type the actual name of the file, only then the file will open. This is called as command based user interface. Done? Yes. You saw that for closing the program also I have to type exit. Yes, that is my command based user interface. Earlier the operating systems used to provide that only. Imagine your entire computer, the entire computer screen looks like the calculator screen. Calculator screen is typically command based user interface. Do you see mouse pointers on the calculator screen? No. Do you see icons on the screen? No. Do you see any graphics and colors on the screen? No. What you see on this calculator screen is only textual numbers, text and numbers. Yes, that is precisely command based user interface. Earlier computers used to be like that, but nowadays we are more used to graphical user interface, where you see icons and menu options and mouse pointers and all. If you wish to open any file, you just have to click on the file. In fact, nowadays within graphical user interface also there is more advancement. Like within graphical user interface, you don't even need to click using a mouse pointer. Touch screen is there. You can click using your finger. In fact, even more advanced, in some cases you don't even need to click using your finger. You can just tell the computer to open a file with your voice command. In case of Android phones, I can tell the phone that, okay Google, please do this, please do that. Yes, it will follow. See, my Google started. I can say that on my phone. I can say, okay Google, please set an alarm of 5 p.m. Done. Alarm set for 5 p.m. Okay, I'll just show you that again. Okay Google, please set an alarm of 6 p.m. Done. Yes, so these are what? This is like voice commands. Voice command is again a type of graphical user interface, so that there is no typing work to be done. Yes, all that is given by operating system. In my Android phone, this voice commands, voice recognition is given by the Android operating system itself. In iPhones, that voice recognition is given by iPhone operating system, iOS operating systems itself. Yes, so in short, giving the user interface is the job of operating system. Also, hardware independence, we discussed that over here. Hardware independence is the job of operating system. Read here. Hardware independence, every computer could have different hardware, different specifications and configurations of hardware. Every phone can have different hardware. Your phone has Samsung hardware, my phone has Samsung hardware, somebody has Vivo hardware, somebody has Oppo, OnePlus hardware and all. So the hardware components will have different specifications. Operating system provides application program interface, API, which can be used by application developers to create application software that can work on any hardware. So look, the main principle here is that is that your application software can work on any hardware because OS gives hardware independence. In fact, this exact sentence is what I explained over here. Notice that sentence again. It says application developers, means software developers, can create new application software which can work on any hardware. New application software, new softwares can be created. While creating new software, he does not need to know that which hardware am I using. He simply needs to know that which operating system am I using. Imagine, as of now, in case of Android phone markets, there are so many types of companies who are selling Android phones. There are so many companies who are selling Android phones. Nokia has again started selling Android phones. Samsung has been selling Android phones. Google themselves have their own Android phones, Pixel phones. Motorola has Android phones. Say all these Chinese companies, Oppo, Vivo, OnePlus, etc., etc. All of them have their own Android phones. Now imagine if there are so many different brand of phones in the market, then the software developer will go mad. So the software developer will go mad if he has to make a separate software for Samsung, separate software for Oppo, separate software for Vivo, separate software for OnePlus. Is that required? No, because all of these phones are using the same operating system. So no matter which hardware you are using, whether the hardware is Samsung or it is Oppo or Vivo or OnePlus, doesn't matter whether the hardware belongs to any company, as long as they all are using same operating system, say Android operating system, then the software developer who wishes to make a new software, he will make a new software specifically for Android. If he makes a new software for Android, it can be run by any of these hardware. This is called as hardware independence. My software does not depend on the fact that which hardware you are using. Done. That is hardware independence, and it happens because operating system provides API. Done. Yes. Okay. Memory management. Remember, the word memory means RAM. Memory management means operating system is having the task to control the RAM, managing the RAM. Operating system will manage the RAM. It will also manage virtual memory. I showed you yesterday that virtual memory is automatically managed. Automatically managed by whom? By the operating system. So whenever the operating system feels that they need more virtual memory, it will automatically increase. When they feel they don't need, it will automatically decrease. Even RAM is managed by the operating system, that whatever files are brought to the RAM, who is bringing it to the RAM? Operating system. When the file is of no use, then the file will be removed from the RAM. Who will remove it from the RAM? Operating system. It is the job of operating system to remove unnecessary data from the RAM. You know that if the RAM gets clogged up, if there is so much unnecessary clutter inside the RAM, then the RAM will get clogged up, and if the RAM is getting clogged up, then your system will slow down. Do you know that? Yes. It is the task of operating system to clean the RAM. Acha, I have one suggestion for you there. You know, I've seen many of the students in my live batches also, I've asked and I've seen many people use some kinds of apps on your phone for cleaning the RAM. RAM cleaning apps, RAM cleaning softwares, many of you use on your phones. Now chalo, if that RAM cleaning software was inbuilt into your phone, then it's not a problem, it's good. But if you have specially installed some RAM cleaning software on your phone, trust me, such software, RAM cleaning software, it will show you very nicely on your phone. It will show you that pura circle bana ke, it will show that dekho the RAM was filled this much. You click the clean button and now it is clean. Well, to display on the screen, it can display anything on the screen. Do you actually trust that display what they show? They show on the screen that RAM was 80% full, now it is only 20% full. Do you actually trust what they show? Please don't trust that. Let me tell you, cleaning the RAM is the job of operating system only. Do not install any external software for cleaning the RAM. Because think, if you install any external software, if you install any external app for RAM cleaning in your phone, then this app will perform RAM cleaning. Operating system will continue to perform RAM cleaning. If both of these programs start doing the RAM cleaning work, then there will be conflict among them. Operating system will say that no, this file I want in the RAM. Other program will say no, I want to delete this file from the RAM. There will be conflict among them and it might make your device even more slow. In fact, these RAM cleaning softwares, that RAM cleaning software itself occupies so much RAM. It will not show on your screen that this software is occupying so much RAM. Trust me, cleaning the RAM is the task of the operating system only. You might be feeling very happy that the software has cleaned my RAM. It shows you on your screen that first the entire circle is filled with unnecessary programs. Then it will swipe one big, it will make a one big swipe and all the unnecessary programs, it will show on the screen that RAM is now free. Don't trust that. It is like those Dettol advertisements. You see in these hand wash advertisements that earlier my hand was having like thousands of germs on it, and then what Dettol ka one chakkar guma, and now the hand is clean. Germs are now 99.9% germs are killed. Do you actually trust that? Plus they show on the screen that wo green color ka circle will move and all the germs are dead. One or two germs will be left off. I don't know why they show one or two germs left off. Just as a courtesy, kuch to rahega. But don't trust that. Similarly, don't trust the RAM cleaning softwares. My personal suggestions, don't use any RAM cleaning softwares in your phone. Don't even use the inbuilt softwares. Let it do its work on its own. Let the RAM cleaning work be done by the operating system on its own. Yes, because memory management is the task of operating system only. Yeah. Further, task management we discussed, it is about multitasking. Multitasking means what? Multitasking means to work with more than one applications at a time. Yes, in my diagram, we were working on 3 programs at a time. It was possible. It is called as multitasking. Also, there is one term called as time sharing. Time sharing means your computer will allow more than one user to use the system. You can create user accounts in your computer. In fact, nowadays in Windows 10, you can even create more than one desktop in your computer. You can create more than one desktop. Chalo, on your computer, you see one, okay, you cannot see here, but on your computer, you can go for the task view button. In that task view button, you see I have already created desktop 1. This is my desktop 1. This is desktop 2. I can click on this plus sign to create a new desktop. Yes, anyways, that is my, again, a kind of, okay, I went to desktop 2. This is again a kind of feature which says that you can have multiple users share the same computer system. This will be called as time sharing. Multitasking means running more than one programs at a time. Time sharing means the time of the computer is shared by more than one user. Well, simply you can remember like this. If I talk about more than one applications, it's called multitasking. If I talk about more than one user using the same system, it is called as time sharing. Yes. Further, networking capabilities. Yes, operating system will allow you to connect to the network. If you want to connect to Wi-Fi network, for connecting your phone to the Wi-Fi network, do you have to install Wi-Fi? No, it's inbuilt. The Wi-Fi facility comes inbuilt into your operating system. Your operating system will operate the Wi-Fi hardware also in your phone. That is why it gives you networking capability. It will help you to connect with computer networks. Plus, operating system gives you logical access security. Security, like in your phone, you have the pattern lock in your phone. Like You have these kinds of pattern lock in your phone. That pattern lock is given by whom? Pattern lock is also provided by operating system. Did you install any software to do the pattern lock? No. So user ID, password, or fingerprint scanners and all. Nowadays the phones are having fingerprint scanners. My phone is having fingerprint scanner at the back here. That fingerprint scanners are given by whom? It is given from the operating system only. You don't install any special program to use the password protection. Yes, that is a part of operating system. Logical access security and file management. File management will help you keep a track of where each file is located. Like on your computer, if you want to see where are the files located, which file is located where, what will you do? You will open this. What is this? This is my computer. My computer, did I install any program to use this my computer? No, this comes inbuilt. This comes inbuilt. This is a part of file management. File management will help me keep a track of where each file is located, who can access the file, plus it will help me to retrieve the file, copy paste the file, rename the file. All that comes under file management. Done? Yes. So this was everything about operating system software. Yes, I'll just go back and give you some time to copy the diagram. I'll also scroll through things again for you to complete your highlighting. First, I need you to make the diagram. Please do that. Yes, we'll scroll up. Please do copy everything that I have written extra and do the highlighting that I have done. You can pause the video if you need more time. I will scroll down. Yes, we'll scroll. Yes, please. We'll go on. Going further, next part is application software. Well, I had given you a basic introduction. What exactly is application software? It is the one which is specifically installed for some specific function. Now, well, under application softwares, we will not be learning like this functions. No, because every different application software is for different function. VLC player is for function of playing audio video. Tally program is for the function of recording accounting transactions. Yes, so every application software will have a different function. There cannot be common functions like this for application softwares. Hence, under application softwares, what we will be learning is certain types. Well, actually, there can be like hundreds of types of application softwares. There can be, yes, actually hundreds of different types of application softwares. So I cannot make a full list of types of application softwares. What you are given in your book is just some examples of types of application softwares. So when I discuss these types of application softwares, don't consider that this is an exhaustive list. It is just an example list, illustrative list. It is not an exhaustive list. Yes. So what is application softwares? Application softwares are the softwares that cause a computer to perform useful tasks beyond the running of the computer itself, beyond the general running of the computer. So operating system was for a general running of the computer. Application softwares are for the task beyond the general running of the computer. It is like operating system was like the central government of a computer, while application software is a private entity within that computer. Say if I want to set up a new business in the city of Mumbai, if I want to set up a new business in Bombay, then in Bombay first I have to take the corporation permission, government permissions. Government, who is operating the general facilities in Mumbai, is the operating system. They provide general infrastructure. If I want to do business in Bombay, then I need various types of permissions, government permissions. I am the application software. Yes, so it is to perform the tasks beyond the general running of the computer itself. It is a collection of programs which address real life problems of its end user. Yes, this will address the problems of the end user. This is the software which will be solving the problems of the end user. End user means you and me. Yep. Which may be business or scientific or any other problem. Types of application softwares. Number one, application suite. Application suite is the name given when the application software has multiple applications which are bundled together. When more than one softwares are bundled together and sold together, it is called as application suite. For example, best example, Microsoft Office. Because when I purchase Microsoft Office, I will get Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Access, many things together. I cannot purchase each of them separately. It will always come all together. That is called as application suite. Yeah. The suite means multiple applications which are bundled together and sold together. Enterprise software are the softwares that will address the enterprise needs, meaning business needs. In short, business softwares. Generally, enterprise softwares are very huge, big softwares, big like SAP. Remember, I gave you example about SAP. SAP right now is the biggest, most expensive, and the most useful business management softwares. So, enterprise softwares are not like Tally software. Tally is a very small software only for accounting work. Enterprise softwares are the softwares which are not just for accounting work. They are softwares which will manage a variety of work, all types of work in a big business. In a big business entity, all types of work it can manage. Like say, the same software will do accounting work for me, same software will do billing also, sales bill generation, same software will keep a track of employee attendance. Then such software is called as enterprise software. It is a huge software for addressing business needs. Example, SAP. SAP is a type of enterprise software. Enterprise softwares are called as ERP. We will learn more details of ERP. More details of that term ERP we will learn in chapter number 2. Further, enterprise infrastructure software. Now this is having a very small difference as compared to enterprise software. Notice, enterprise software, I said it is for the business needs. Enterprise infrastructure software is to support the enterprise software system. Supporting. So enterprise infrastructure softwares are not directly used by the employees of the company, but these are the softwares which will be supporting the enterprise software. Enterprise infrastructure software will provide support to this enterprise software. For example, email server, security softwares, etc. Email server. Now my company is using SAP for recording all my company management things. But my company is also using, say, email addresses. If I want to send an email to another employee of the company, then company is using email services from Google. Then Google is providing email server. Google is providing enterprise infrastructure software. It is providing me general infrastructure in my enterprise software. Yes, that is enterprise infrastructure software. In simple words, you remember like this. Enterprise software is for my business. Enterprise infrastructure software is to support the enterprise software. It is to support this enterprise software. Okay. Information worker software is the one which will address individual needs for individual projects within the departments. Many companies work on project basis. And if they work on project basis, then for each project, new project that they get, they might need a separate software only for this project. It is not a general software for general attendance work and accounting work. No, it is a software which is required only for this particular project. Such software can be called as information worker software. Example, spreadsheet, Excel sheet. Example, computer aided audit techniques. Yes, these are the softwares for a particular task only. Such softwares which are for some specific particular task, not like more than one task, is called as information worker software. Content access software. Any software which allows you to access content of other files. It will allow you to access content of published digital content. For example, if you want to watch a Netflix movie, you need the Netflix software. If it is a Netflix original movie, will you find it anywhere else legally? No. So legally you will not find it anywhere else. You need the Netflix software to access the content of Netflix programs. Yeah, that is like content access software. The Netflix movie or Netflix programs are published digital content. You can access them only through the content access software, through the Netflix software. Educational software, any software used by students. Okay. Media development softwares are the softwares to develop media. Develop media. Now when I say media, media means what? Media can be print or video, audio, etc. Best example, many times students, you are very fond of clicking pictures and all. You click pictures with your friends, you click a selfie, bathroom mein khade selfie lete, all these celebrity people do that. Yes, and they click the picture such that wo Apple phone ka apple dikhna chahiye. Now they click the picture. Now if the picture does not turn out to be very good, say the picture turns out to be dark, lighting is dark, what you do is you put some filters on it, you put some photo editing tools. Yes, you do some editing of the photo, and after that editing your black photo will now become white. Yes, your dark photo will now become fair. These photo editing tools that you might have used is basically media development softwares. These are the softwares which will help you make your Aadhaar card photo look like a Facebook photo. Yes, that is like media development softwares for editing photos, editing videos, editing audio, creating videos, movie maker softwares, joining the photos to make a video, and all such softwares you might have used, they all fall under media development softwares. Well, all these are examples of application softwares. But like I said, this is not the complete list. You might say that there are so many softwares which might not fall under any of these categories. But anyways, we are just doing these categories so that it gives you a general idea about what is application softwares. Done? Yes. Okay, that is application softwares. Within application softwares, there is benefits and disadvantages. Benefits and disadvantages, I will just read the headings. Details you have to read on your own. Look, out of the entire book, every single topic word to word I will not discuss. Yes, I'll discuss the main areas, most of the areas. Few areas like this will go for your homework, it will go for your self-study. Benefits of application softwares. Well, benefit is that it will address the user needs. These are the softwares specifically for a particular requirement of the user. Yes, it will address the user needs. Less threat from virus. Generally, virus will try to affect your operating system, because look, if somebody wants to cause damage, in India, they will first target government establishments, they will not target private companies. Similarly, if the virus wants to cause damage in your computer, it will generally target operating system, not target particular programs. Well, that is why application softwares might have little less threat from viruses. But frankly, nowadays that is not true. Virus can affect anything nowadays. Yeah. Regular updates. Licensed softwares, you'll keep getting regular updates from the software developer so that your security can be maintained. Look, any software that you use, you should always keep updating the software. I've seen many people who are using many apps on your phone, but most of you keep the app updates off, especially iPhone users. Look, I am not an iPhone fan. I'll tell you that later also again, that why am I not an iPhone fan. But I've seen many of the iPhone users that you don't keep updating your phone. Your software updates you keep ignoring. Even individual program updates you keep ignoring. Mainly, these people ignore the updates. You don't update your phone because you don't have enough storage space on your phone. But let me tell you, any software update that you get, whether it is OS update or whether individual software like WhatsApp update, Facebook update and all, I always recommend whatever update is possible, always keep updating. Because look, hackers, viruses, they keep on getting updated. So if you are not updated, then your old app can be hacked by the hacker. When you update your app, then your security of the app is also getting updated. So it is always necessary to get regular updates from the developer for security reasons. It will give you better security. Yes, plus they will also give you more new features and all. Chalo, new features if I don't want, it's okay, but still for better security, updates are necessary. Application softwares will get updates more often. OS update will not come very often because it is difficult to update the entire operating system. But individual app updates will be more often, more regular. So regular updates you will get in case of apps. Disadvantages, yes, development is costly. Developing application software to design specific purposes might turn out to be costly. If I want a special software developed only for my company, it will yes become costly. Yes, an infection from malware. Generally, operating system might get affected by viruses, but application softwares are carrying more threat in the form of malware. Now, what exactly is a malware? Malware is also a kind of virus only, but malware is basically a program which looks like a regular program only. You might be using that program as if a regular program, but it is causing damage in your computer. You know, there have been many recent news regarding certain apps on the Google Play Store that you start using the apps, it is there on the Play Store. Many people are using these apps, but these apps are now dangerous because they are violating your privacy. Now, such apps which you have yourself installed thinking that it is for good purpose, but you don't know that on the backside the app might be causing some damages, that is called as malware. So, so application softwares will have this chance of having malware inside. Done? Yes. Okay. And lastly, certain application areas of computer based applications. These are examples that where our application software is used. Again, I will just discuss the headings. Where our application software is used? Application softwares can be used for finance and accounting purpose. Example, Tally software. It will help you maintain your books of accounts, do the budgeting, forecasting, etc., etc. Yeah. General ledger means routine books of accounts that will help you to create. Marketing and sales. Application softwares are also useful in marketing, advertising, keeping a track of customers, getting money recovered from customers and all that. For that you have separate softwares again. Production and manufacturing. Softwares which will manage your production. For managing production, it can tell you how much to produce. It can tell you how much material will be needed to do the production, how many machines will be needed, how many workers will be needed. All those calculations can be given by the production softwares. Inventory stores management software. Stores management software are very common. Most of companies use that. It will help you to keep a track of materials in the store. It will help you keep a track of material. It will also keep a track of maximum and minimum stock levels. Costing may materials chapter we have learned. Yes, you can keep a track of maximum stock level, minimum stock level using the softwares. It can also raise an alarm at the danger level. The software will tell you when to make a next order for materials. Reorder level it can calculate and all that are the stores management softwares. And human resource management softwares are the softwares which will keep the entire database of your employees. It will maintain a skill database. Skill database means that it will maintain a database that which all employees do I have, which employee have what skills, like this employee is computer engineer, this employee is chartered accountant, this employee is software engineer. Such skill database can be maintained in the software. Plus it will keep a track of attendance of all my employees. It can also calculate salaries for all my employees. Yes, it can keep a track of new recruitment of employees and all that can also be done by the application softwares. Done? Yes. Okay, these are all examples of application software. Yeah. Yes, just take a minute, go through that. If you have anything to highlight, please do that. Yes, we'll go on. Okay, so this was regarding my second component of information systems. First component hardware, second component was softwares. Within softwares we did was application software and the system software. So by now three components of information systems we are done. Let me remind you, first was people, second was hardware, third was software. Now fourth component of information system is data resources. Look at the connection. Look, if I'm talking about information system, it is a system of sharing and distributing information. Well, for that matter, I need people who want information. Number one, I need hardware, meaning I need computers by which I will share the information. In that computer, I need some softwares. So inside the computer, I have to install some softwares, that is the software components. But the most important thing that I need is the data. Because if I'm talking about sharing information, so you need information first. I need a method of storing that information. Only then this information I can share and distribute. Yes, so information is basically originating from data. What is it? Data resources. Under this topic, first I give you some basic introduction, some basic words we will learn. But the most important part under this topic will be about database management systems. First of all, I just defined certain basic terms. Four basic terms I define over here. Not very important, but these are the basics. Four basic terms that I define here. Number one, data. Number two, information. Third, the word knowledge. And fourth is the word wisdom. Data is basically raw data. Raw bits of information, raw bits and pieces of information. Raw is data. For example, if I just write a number here, imagine what if I just write down a number here, rupees 1 lakh. I just write a number without any frame of reference. If I just write a number without any frame of reference, without giving any context, then this number is of no use. What do you understand by this number? Say 1 lakh. What do you understand? Nothing. It is just a number. This is data. But when data is given with context, it becomes useful. Then useful data is called as information. For example, I give you this number 1 lakh. Along with that, I give you context. I give you another number also, say 70,000, and I give you some other useful things with that. I say that both of these are figures of profit. And I say that 70,000 was the figure of previous year profit. 1 lakh is the figure of current year profit. Imagine if I give you the data in a table format like this. Now, does this data give you some useful knowledge? Does it make some sense to you? Does it make any meaning to you? Yes, when the data becomes meaningful, it is called as information. When the data is given with some context, it becomes useful, it becomes meaningful, then it is called as information. Now when I see this data, at least it gives me knowledge, at least it gives me an idea that my current year profit is better than the previous year profit. If data is given raw, it is called data. If it is given in comparison, it becomes useful. In comparison matlab it is given with some context, it becomes useful. That useful thing is called as information. Yes. Now information can be used to make decisions. Use of information is called as knowledge. So when I see this, it at least gives me the knowledge. It gives me knowledge that my current year profit is better than the previous year profit. This is called as knowledge. Knowledge can be used to make decisions, decide policies, and even spark innovation. And later, knowledge and experience combined is called as wisdom. Chalo, wisdom, it is becoming little more spiritual. Let us not get into the spiritual aspect. We focus on only the more technical aspect here, that is data, and information. Data versus information is the main difference you should know. Data is raw, information is meaningful. Data is alone, information is in comparison with some context. Done? Yes. Okay, that is primary. What is data? What is information? Now, this data or information will be stored in my computers. It will be stored in the form of a system called as database management system. But well, this topic I will need more time to explain. Plus, I will need a continuous time to explain that. My next session, I will be starting that. DBMS and many examples pertaining to DBMS I need to give you. So I will not be starting that now. I will be starting that in my next session. Yes. So right now I will put an end to this session. But chalo, before I wrap up the session, I have few things to talk to you. I have to tell you. I have to tell you my story. Yes. Today I will be telling you my story, my part of the story. Well, many times. Many of my friends also ask me that many of my friends, my colleagues who did CA along with me, they asked me that why am I teaching the subject of EIS, information technology it was called back then. They asked me that why am I teaching IT subject. Most of my friends feel that IT was the most boring subject. They feel that IT was the most pathetic subject, and they had always the fear of failing in this subject. Yes, I don't deny that might be true for them. It was never true for me. So well, let me tell you my story at that end. I told you on the first day that why do I teach this subject. I teach this subject because frankly I love this subject. But there's a reason. Maybe there's this reason that why I love this subject. Well, basically I was a science student. I was not originally a commerce student. I did my 11th and 12th standard in science field only. Then I jumped into CA. So my story is about how and why did I jump into CA. Many people ask me that being a science student, why did you start doing CA? Well, frankly, I don't have an answer. Frankly speaking, I don't have an answer at that for that purpose. Maybe because I wanted to do something new. In fact, I had so many engineers in my family. I had also joined science field because everyone in my family was in science field. So looking at my sisters, my elder sisters and all, I also had taken up 12th science and thinking that ki chalo doctor banenge. Yes, I wanted to become a doctor, so I had taken up 12th science. But when the results were out, I did not have enough score to get into a good medical college. I could have got into some donation-based medical college, but I didn't want to do that. And I was getting into good engineering college. I was getting admission into Nirma Engineering College in Ahmedabad, but I did not want to get into engineering because there were so many engineers in my family, and plus at that time Three Idiots movie had not come, so I was not even keen on doing engineering for that matter. And because I could not get into medical and engineering, I did not want to get into. At that time, we didn't have maths and biology separate; it was all together. So both options I had, but frankly, I did not want to get into engineering, so I was looking at other options. Suddenly, I came across this option that yes, being a science student, I can get into CA. I was in a small town in Gujarat called Rajkot. I'm from a town called Rajkot, and I came to Ahmedabad in Gujarat for the admissions. We have centralized admissions. We had centralized admissions for all engineering colleges here. So I had come to Ahmedabad for engineering college centralized admission. I still remember that day. It was 6th of June in, okay, year I don't remember, 2004 I completed my 12th. Yeah, so 6th of June 2004 it was. And I had come to Ahmedabad with my dad for engineering college admissions. My sister was married in Ahmedabad. She had a house here, so we were staying at her place for a few days. Now on the day of engineering college admissions, I came to Ahmedabad. I reached Ahmedabad morning around 9 or 10 o'clock, and afternoon 3 p.m. I had my admission call at the interview station. 3 p.m. I had my admission call. Before that, at around 11 a.m., I went to some CA coaching classes in Ahmedabad with my dad just to inquire about CA and all. And I came to this one particular place where the owner of the coaching classes met us, and we had a talk with him. This guy was a pakka businessman, nice person, a pakka businessman. What he did was he explained me a few basic things and all, and he actually pushed me into the classroom. He told me that, Arey Devang, you're already late for getting into CA classes. You're already late for starting the coaching. The batches have already started. He actually pushed me into a classroom, and he told me that the rest of the things I will explain to your father outside the classroom. Now, in that premises, I saw the CA students, I saw the CA faculties, and I got impressed. Frankly speaking, at that age, it is very easy to take decisions. At that age, I had more risk taking abilities, so I was easy. It was easy for me to take any wild decisions. This was one such wild decisions which I don't regret. I saw the CA faculties at that institute. I saw the chartered accountants moving around in the institute, and looking at them, I got impressed. Like you might notice that, say, in case of engineering colleges, you go to engineering colleges, you see the engineering students, you see the engineering faculties. Mostly engineering students, they are always moving around so shabby, very shabby clothes and all. They never care about themselves and all. That is what I had seen in some colleges and all. And when I came to this CA institute, I saw that all of them, all the CA students and the CA faculties, they were all dressed tip top, nicely, neatly dressed and neatly shaved and all. Looks good. It gave me a good impression. It gave me a premium feeling. I was like, ah, good, I want to be in this field. That is one of the reason I decided, yes, I want to get into this field. Second reason, maybe because I wanted to do something new. Second reason, yes, I wanted to do something new, so I thought this was new enough for me. Anyways, the institute owner actually pushed me into the classroom. I went there and I sat at a place. I had some other people sitting around, and the class had not yet started. The faculty had not yet come. But by the time the faculty came, the class was full, and I realized that, bloody, I am in the middle of 150 students. 150 commerce students ke beach I am one science student. Trust me, I felt so afraid that day. Sala, I don't know anything about this field. I don't know anything about the subject. Plus, over and above that, I'm even late in joining the classes. So I was pretty much scared at that time. I just wished that hopefully it should be mathematics class, because being a science student, I was good in maths. But unfortunately, it turned out to be accounts class. Being a science student, I was completely zero in accounts. All the other 150 students around me, they were all commerce students. They have already learnt accounts. They've already learnt accounts, and they have, say, learnt 2 years of accounting subject in 11th and 12th commerce. I was there without learning accounts at all, sitting into a lecture of CA foundation accounts class. So obviously, I was pretty much afraid. Plus, I had not even come to attend the class. I didn't have any book, I didn't have any pencil, pen, paper, nothing. I had not even calculator. I was just sitting there essay without anything. One person came and sat beside me. His name was Biraj. Biraj is now my one of the best friends. And he just saw that I don't have anything to write. He was a kind person. He gave me a book to write. He gave me one of the extra book he had. So you write in this. And he also gave me a pen to write. The faculty came and he started teaching something. Everything goes over my head. I was so frustrated. I didn't understand anything at all. And over and above that, that is when the faculty started asking questions. Luckily, he did not point and ask individual questions. He was asking general questions. General questions, I don't know what he was teaching. Maybe he was teaching something about journal entries. He started asking questions, and something he will ask, and the entire class together will shout, debit, credit, debit, credit. I'll be wondering, kya ho raha hai? I don't understand anything at all. But I tried to stay with it. After a while, again the faculty started asking some questions. This time he was probably revising bank reconciliation, BRS. And the entire class together start shouting, increase, decrease, or increase or decrease. He will ask something and the class will answer increase. Again he asked something, class will answer decrease. I felt frustrated. Now what to do? After a while, I thought of joining the flow. Now when the faculty will ask something, entire class will shout increase or decrease. I will shout crease, crease, just to make myself feel with the flow. Anyways, this was how I had started doing CA. But trust me, In my first exam of CA, foundation exam, four subjects we had: accounts, accounts we had, then law we had, economics we had, and maths and stats we had. Out of these four subjects, my personal highest score was in accounting subject. You might be wondering that being a science student, how did I have the best score in accounting subject? Because look, I never took my science background as my disadvantage. I always took my science background as my advantage. I would rather take that as an advantage. Why? Because, well, being a science student, I knew that this is where I am weak. I knew that accounting is the subject where I might be weak. Because I knew my weakness, I can work on my weakness. Look, I'm coming to a point which will help you. I knew that I was weak in account subject. I knew my weakness. It was good that I know my weakness. Half of the students don't even know that which subject you are weak in. For me, I was at least happy that I knew what was my weakness. I knew that my weakness would be accounting subject. So since the beginning, I had given more efforts in that subject. In fact, when I started doing CA, first day this happened, I didn't understand anything at all. I came back home and I told my father that nahi, ye mere se nahi hoga, I cannot do this. I don't understand anything about debits and credits. My father was also a science student, but he used to maintain his own books of accounts for his business. So he had some idea about accounting. My father said that, chalo, wait, I will explain you what is debit and credit. But you know, father can never explain a child. My father can never explain to me, because he will get frustrated if I don't understand. I will get frustrated if I don't understand, and we will have little heated arguments there. We tried for 2 3 days, it never worked. I didn't understand anything what my father told me about debit and credit, because anyways he was also a science student. He did not have the full knowledge about debits and credits. So finally we decided that I will take up some coaching, extra coaching. I took up an extra coaching for accounting subject to learn the basics of accounting. So what the commerce students learn in 2 years of 11th and 12th commerce, everything about that 2 years accounting subject, I learned it in just 2 months. We hired one accounting faculty, personal coaching, who will tell me, who will teach me about basics of accounting. He gave me a knowledge about basic accounting, what is journal entries, what is ledger posting and all. Basic accounting only he taught me in those two months. So what commerce students learn in 2 years, I learned that in just 2 months. And trust me, that was enough to catch up the things that we do in CA. That was enough to catch up the accounting subject for CA foundation. And accordingly, I gave my efforts in that accounting subject little more. I was anyways good in mathematics. Stats I had never learned, but it was easy to learn being a science student. And economics and law was not a major issue. But ultimately, when the exams were conducted, my personal highest score was in accounts subject. I'm telling this story to you because many of you have the exact opposite situation when it comes to my subject here. Being a commerce student, IT subject, EIS subject might be a challenge for you, might be little difficult for you, but that is where you need to give more efforts. You know that this is going to be your toughest subject. You know that you might be weak in this subject, especially those of you who are like not fond of computers and not the geeky kind of guys that I am. Then definitely you need to give more efforts in this subject. Give daily revisions, regular revisions. I've told you on my first session also that what I need from you in this subject is some consistent efforts. Not that one day you study, next day you don't. No, I need you to give some consistent efforts. Daily 3 to 4 hours self-study is needed for this subject. Whatever I teach you today, whatever I teach you in this session, please revise that before you start the next day. Whatever lectures you watched today, please revise that on your own, study that on your own, maybe even memorize that on your own before you start with the next day. You need to give regular efforts in this subject. Have the target that the day when I finish EIS subject in my video lectures, within 5 days after that, you also finish EIS subject completely, fully from your side. Have that target, otherwise you will never finish this subject. Like I told you, when you know that you are weak in any subject, it is good that you know your weakness so that you can work on your weakness. It worked for me, it should work for you. I frankly, I never had problems in this subject because it was one of my basic passions. But Account subject, I never hated the subject. I liked the subject. In fact, I loved the accounting subject because it was something new. In fact, I started doing CA because I wanted to do something new. I was tired of doing the same science things. So I wanted to do something new. Anyways, that 2 years I spent in 12th science, I have never regretted that. Many of my friends ask me that kab to tu CA ban gaya, now you have become CA. Don't you regret that you wasted 2 years of your life doing 12th science? Well, think of it in a different way. I never wasted 2 years of my life doing 12th science. I tell my friends that you wasted 2 years of your life doing 12th commerce. Why? Because although you have become CA now, but in that 2 years of your life when you did 12th commerce, what you did in that 2 years, I have done that in just 2 months. At least in those 2 years, I learned something new. Commerce student, you didn't learn anything new in that 2 years because anyways, CA field may I have learned the same thing. Think positive. Please don't take me wrong, I'm not degrading any of you commerce students. I'm just telling you the facts that I don't regret doing science for 2 years, because those 2 years of science, at least I learned something new. And because of those 2 years during 12th science, I got habituated to giving more study efforts. I got habituated to give more efforts in my study, because yes, science requires more efforts in study as compared to 12th commerce. General trend is that. So I was habituated to give like 10 to 14 hours a day study since my 12th standard, which helped me in my CA coaching also. Yes, ultimately, my suggestion for you today is that just like me, I knew which subject I was weak at, so I gave more efforts in that subject. I suggest you also find out which subject you are weak at. If EIS is the subject which is your weakness, start giving more efforts for that. Trust me, if you give regular daily efforts, then this subject will be very easy peasy for you. Done? Yes, yeah. Anyways, I will be continuing my life story later in some other sessions for some other things to learn. But today's learning is this. Done? Yes. That's all for now. Thank you very much. So I'll be ending the session and we'll be continuing in the next session. Thank you. Bye bye.